Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, I got 3 more weeks in Taiwan. I want you guys to once again pray as hard as you can for two main things. Number one, the potential of a career pivot and move here to Taiwan. And the reason I thought about that was that today on the train ride into the city, I looked out the window and then I remembered that back home I don't get the luxury of just relaxing on the ride home. I actually have to drive and use my brain and can't really do anything else, right? Can't really have any distractions. And the car almost feels like a jail. It might as well be. At least in jail, you generally don't have to use uh, acuity all that much, right? At least not the kind, right? Yeah, you do have to be smart around other people. I've been in jail before, but it's a different kind of focus than driving, right? And that car might as well be a jail. I'm going to draw a little bit of. I love art now. I'm going to draw a cartoon of somebody who's driving, but he's really locked up behind bars. Right? I'm going to draw that because even if I had the same length of in time of commute on a train or on a bus, or better yet, on a crowded airplane, I would still feel a lot less stressed than I do when I drive because you don't have to focus very much, right? As much as I hate flying, and by the way, I hate flying not because I worry about plane crashes or terrorism or any of that. I have social anxiety. But as much as I hate that, I think I hate it less than driving, believe it or not. I can usually handle flights. Yeah, I do have to use my street smarts there, right? But it's a very different kind of focus than when you're driving. The other thing I like about Taiwan is that people are more acute of what's going on outside of themselves, right? So over in the U.S., at the workplace, I've never worked a day here in Taiwan, but I can already see it because I interact with a lot of people who work here. They don't just think, how do I get ahead in my career? How do I survive today, right? How do I make it until Friday to get my paycheck? Or the typical workday in America is filled with those kind of thoughts, right? Over here in Taiwan, there's more of a group think, right? And people don't step all over each other nearly. I mean, I in the hostel, I see staff interacting with each other, right? Okay. Also pray that I'm going to go on a trip with the girl that I met last time, but she's moving to Vietnam not long after. Pray that it works. And here's the thing: am I obsessed about her? No, but I. This is possibly my last chance before things significantly fall apart. You got to understand, my dating life is not really sustainable for that much longer anymore, right? I talked about back home in the U.S. Dating culture is very different. In the U.S., you cannot be money conscious when you have a dating life. Here in Taiwan, it's a very different story. Girls like it when you're money conscious because they're thinking of a long term partner. They don't want somebody who will buy anything shiny that they see at the store shelves. Not when you're married to them, right? And here in Taiwan, people actually date to get married. Over in the U.S., a lot of dating is really glorified prostitution. I'm not joking when I say that. There's a very thin line between prostitution and dating over in the U.S. Now, prostitution obviously it exists here in Taiwan, but it's a very different, a very distinct event than dating, right? Um, but leave a comment if you agree that in the U.S. there often is a very thin line between prostitution and dating, and unfortunately, another thing I've noticed here in Taiwan is that we don't like to waste time, and so it is not frowned upon on your very first date to talk about things that would be instant deal breakers, right? Religion, politics, whether or not you want children, Um, and anything that might be a deal breaker, we discuss it on a first date, right? We don't waste time. See, in the U.S., you can't do that. You might not find out about differences in those kind of categories until you've spent a lot of time and money, and that's what I meant by unsustainable. I haven't put aside any resources for almost a year now. I feel like I'm spending like Congress, and not to mention a lot of people have to juggle multiple jobs in the U.S. So a lot of times dating just comes with huge opportunity costs. Funny thing is that I've gotten used to the fact that over in the US, you guys remember, I often have to pay people to set me up on blind date to play wing person. And when I got to Taiwan, I kind of got used to that. And I started offering people stuff here too. And so, funny thing is that here in Taiwan, people thought I was joking, and the one roommate who offered to do that for me, he thought that I was being conned, scammed by all the wing people back home in the U.S. When I told him what I had given these people, he thought that it was a scam. The truth is that people are just so busy that without these rewards, nobody would do any of this. Now, one of the people that I interact, I met up with another material scientist here, and so I'm going to give him a piece of art. So in 1849, Mendeleev wrote down the very first periodic table. I'm going to make an art of his original, superimposed to the one we have today, and draw little arrows and correction marks to show where he got it wrong and all that, and as a gift to that material scientist roommate for setting me up on the blind date. Didn't go very far, but um, I went from giving actual, really valuable metals on the periodic tables, and now just a painting of the periodic tables. It's coming, but much more sustainable, right? And when I do go on the dates, I can actually be money conscious. Not to mention, just going out here in Taiwan is just so much less expensive. Plus, you don't have to drive, and so another side effect of not having to drive is I notice ever since I don't have to drive, I don't have to watch my body nearly as much. So I can stay out until I'm like no longer conscious. I don't drink, but I sometimes get myself sleep deprived without the need to drive. I can get myself as sleep deprived as I want out there and just take the train back home. Right. Sometimes I'm so sleep deprived I miss the train stop altogether. But at least I'm not going to kill myself or anybody else. I can drink as much caffeine as I want without having to think what's up next, right? I can mess myself up considerably, right? Uh, and Also, it makes it easier for me to do intermittent fasting. I don't have to think about am I going to be too disoriented to drive. Driving takes a big bite out of your life, right? If you really stop to think about it, uh, I don't drink, but if you love drinking, you know that having to drive takes a big bite out of that habit, right? Uh, but for me, fasting is the main one. Back home, oftentimes the requirement to drive puts a limit to how far I can take my intermittent fast. It really does. It really does. I didn't really think about it until I traveled here.